everybody, and welcome to another brand new episode of T Watches a Scary Movie. My name is T, and we're talking scary movies. I appreciate everybody tuning in. It's another brand new episode. We got a nice string of these going on here, folks. We got some fun stuff to talk about. Tonight, there is a spider on the mic. My God, why does this keep happening? They killed a spider really quickly because, no mercy, no reward. Shit. Okay, it's off the mic. All right. Man, I swear to God, y'all hear so many spider-related incidents on this show. It's absolutely ridiculous. I didn't kill it, so probably still here somewhere, but we're going to go with it anyway. Act like everything's normal. Again, appreciate you all tuning in. Episodes go up every Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Video episodes go up on YouTube. You can subscribe by going to youtube.com/C/Theron Reynolds Scary Movie. Again, youtube.com/C/Theron Reynolds Scary Movie. As well, find our Facebook group. That's facebook.com/group/T Scary Movie. Facebook.com/group/T Scary Movie. You can find out about our watch parties we do. We're taking a break for some movies right now. We've been doing a lot of TV watch parties. Doing another one of those tonight. We got a Marianne, got Exorcist, Haunting of Hill House, Creep Show, and then of course Chucky and Dexter New Blood as well too. So get to the Facebook group, find out what's going on, get in the Discord. We're watching some TV tonight. And of course, audio-only version is on Podbean. I appreciate y'all subscribing who just listen as opposed to just watching, because there's not a lot of interesting stuff. I'm not that interesting of a person. I mean, I like myself, but I get it. The audio-only version sometimes a lot easier to take down in a sitting, basically, while you can do all your other stuff. So, I wanted to talk a lot about Dexter this week. Because, as you know, this past Sunday, Dexter New Blood premiered. Now, it depends on the way you want to look at that show. You know, is this technically season 9 of Dexter? Or are we looking at this as it is a completely separate series? So it would be season 1 of this. Because they did say this is a limited series. We'll take that at face value right now because, ratings do a lot of things for people, and if this show ends up being a hit, wouldn't be surprised if Dexter's back for another season. So, I don't know. I don't know whether or not this is season 9 or if this is something completely different. But the first episode premiered, and we had a lot of ground to cover since back in 2013, we ended off with Dexter just sailing off into the waters of Miami, and then eventually turning up, at the other side of the country, as a lumberjack, basically, is what we were saying, and we needed a lot of answers as to what might have been going on since then. And so, New Blood, like I said, came out this past Sunday, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I thought it would help if we went back and focused a little bit on the first season of Dexter, and at the time, what was the last season of Dexter, now the 8th season, to kind of cover, where it started and where the series has ended up at this point. Now, Dexter came out, and this was based on a series of books that were released around the time. This came out in 2006, if I'm correct, and what the hell am I talking about? There was a novel called Darkly Dreaming Dexter that talked about this guy who was basically living a lie. He's a serial killer, but he's not the traditional serial killers that we're used to in movies where they're the bad guys. They're the ones who are basically, the antagonists of the series and everything. Instead, even though Dexter was a serial killer, Dexter was our protagonist. Dexter was our good guy. Dexter was who we were rooting for. Because he was a serial killer who had this code that basically made him different from other serial killers out there. He only killed these people who were very deserving of this code that was instilled into him. And the book series went into some wild directions, but Showtime picked it up to develop into a TV series. And I did actually read. I read the first 3 or 4 books in the Dexter series and loved them. Oh, so good, so good. But one thing that I think we can all agree on, if you've read the books and watched the TV show, is that there's a very big difference for where they go off. And for better or worse, the TV show is quite different from what those books brought to us. You know, there's a resemblance of certain things and certain characters, but the TV show that we got was quite different from what those books brought there. So very diverse cast, which was a lot of fun to see in a primetime show like this. You know, the show is set in Miami, Florida, and you know, considering where it's at, you would expect that we can't just have like an all-white cast or anything like that. So Dexter works as a blood spatter analyst for Miami Metro PD, and the cast of characters around him, like his commanding officer, is a Latina woman, and his sergeant is a black man, and his coworker, he has a Cuban coworker, and then, you know, lowest on the totem pole there is Dexter's sister, Deborah, who, you know, is just working in Vice. And that alone made that series just so interesting. And something about it as well, too, because I've talked about on this show with movies and TV series that there's a way that things are kind of lit. And like to where they'll make something look overly blue or gray. Like think of the Underworld series. And notice how most of everything in the Underworld series is shaded in blue or gray. And the only other thing that kind of stands out from that is the red from the blood, and that's very much on purpose. And season 1 of Dexter kind of did a lot of that, because you notice that like in all the daytime scenes, it's almost like it's overlit. So like the colors that Dexter and the cast of characters around him are always wearing, like Angel wearing his bright pink and yellow shirts, and even Dexter wearing like these neon shirts and everything as well, that kind of really stand out. And I don't know why that just stands out in my mind about that first season, but I just love the way that they really did bring Miami to life in that season of the show. And it's also very interesting because I do feel that season 1 showed us Dexter and probably his most like devious over the course of the entire series of the show, because when he was hunting and catching his victims over the course of season 1, this was before he had built a lot of those relationships that he gathered over the entirety of the show at the time, and was kind of humanizing him. And so a lot of the way we see Dexter in season 1 really does come off very scary, because he is a serial killer. He absolutely is a serial killer, and we don't know him enough at that point. Yeah, he's our good guy. He's the guy we're following here, but we don't know him enough to not be, you know, appalled or put off by what he's doing to his victims, you know, whether they're guilty or not. And it's interesting to see the way that things kind of unfold around his sister Deb and the rest of the characters in Miami Metro as the season goes on. A lot of this first season starts setting up immediately that we have to start giving Dexter these human traits, that he's a serial killer, but we can't really follow a serial killer in this form without emotions and stuff for so long. So we start to learn about Dexter's past and how he was adopted by a cop. And this cop immediately knew that there was something wrong with Dexter and tried to instill in him this code that basically meant he would only victimize those who deserved it, nobody who was an innocent. And we learn a lot more about Dexter's past, that Dexter also had a brother, and both Dexter and this brother named Brian witnessed their mother's brutal murder by this drug gang. And that basically formed Dexter and his brother Brian into these serial killers. And whereas Dexter got adopted by Harry the cop, who tried to make sure that Dexter stayed on the right path, and even if he couldn't be human, he could be human passing, Dexter's brother Brian didn't have that same pleasure and wasn't given any kind of code. And so when his like murderous tendencies grew, that grew into something unfortunate to where he became, you know, a normal serial killer, basically, one that's just murdering for no reason at all. And we're shown both sides throughout this season, you know, Dexter's kills versus his brother Brian, who at the time is known as the Ice Truck Killer. his kills, and we're basically supposed to see that, yeah, well, Dexter's makes a little bit more sense, but there's not that big of a difference between what Dexter is doing and what Brian is doing. And it's just fascinating the way they play these kills off throughout the season. And of course, in the background, as we're trying to close in on finding out who it is, we, the audience, are trying to figure out who the ice truck killer is until they eventually reveal it. But also, some of Dexter's co-workers, including Sergeant Dokes, also have a feeling about Dexter that something's incredibly wrong and that there's some kind of connection there that nobody else knows about. Now, of course, we know that Dexter is the brother to the ice truck killer, but the rest of the cast and Miami Metro Police Department doesn't know that. So as Dokes begins to kind of piece that there's something wrong with Dexter, this begins his obsession with him, which leads to the very fucking awesome season 2 with Lila. But we're not talking about that today. We also get to see, which is very interesting now watching Dexter New Blood, which we'll talk about. It's interesting that we don't get to see Dexter from the perspective of everybody else. So we know immediately he's this killer, that he's not a real person, and that he's forcing all these emotions. All these things, these are not real. We don't get to enjoy the clouded perspective of Dexter, the normal person. And that's fascinating because in any other movie or TV series up to the time of Dexter, what was really the norm was that we wouldn't find out who the killer is typically until the end of the film or the end of the series, because it's usually somebody working with the police, or it's somebody who's presented as like this good guy or this ally or one of our protagonists, and then surprise, surprise, they're the one that's been killing people all this time. And Dexter kind of like threw it off because right away it's like, look, this is the person you're following, but you're not going to get to see how he's hoodwinking all these people. Like, you're seeing what he's doing, but you're not going to see it from the perspective of everybody around him and how this is all very natural. And that was fascinating, the way that was, brought to us, because we're watching this show from the perspective of a serial killer. And for once, not everybody else around this serial killer. It was gory, it was bloody, it was brutal. It was scary as well, too. Like, props to the score that they used, because I think y'all know the track I'm talking about, like that slow violin track that they use in credits, that they play like throughout like episodes a lot of times when something creepy's going on. Like, that shit still like kind of like sends shivers up my spine. Like, I love the music that they used throughout the entire show, but season 1 again does such a good job, and that's another way they actually sell, the Miami atmosphere as well too. All the music they've been using just feels so authentic to it, But an absolutely fantastic smash way to start off a TV series. I remember that I was lucky enough to get into it pretty quickly. I caught onto it, I think, halfway through the first season going on. I was working at Circuit City at the time. I tie everything to Circuit City that I can. But I remember jumping into this show about halfway through the first season and just being hooked after that and staying with it through the run of the show. Man, so good. So good. And I know y'all absolutely love that first season as well. That's a hard one to really top, honestly. And the show, I know everybody has its critics about certain seasons and everything like that, but season 1 really is pretty damn perfect, honestly. And if not for the Trinity Killer, I think season 1 would be everybody's favorite season of the show. It's kind of hard to, not choose the Trinity Killer season as the best one there. But that is not the only season that we are talking about here. We are talking about the 8th season of Dexter. At the time, was the last season before Dexter New Blood came out this past week. Now, at this point here in the 8th season, a lot of shit has gone down, all right? And it's kind of hard not to do without spoiling some things. They were kind of close to the 10-year rule. So I apologize, y'all. I'm not really going to be spoiling Dexter New Blood, so I'll save you that. But if you have not seen the 8th season of Dexter, you're about to hear some spoilers coming up. So, at this point here, LaGuardia LaGuardia found out that Dexter was the Bay Harbor butcher, that Dexter has been the one that committed all these murders back in the early seasons of the show, that he's responsible for Dokes' death and framing as the Bay Harbor butcher, that he's done all this shit, basically. She found out, and unfortunately, Deborah was forced into killing LaGuardia to maintain Dexter's secret. Now, that caused all these issues. Obviously, Deb went crazy from it. And she's trying to deal with saving Dexter by basically betraying everything she knew. And keep in mind, this is all this all after a lot of other stuff has happened over the course of this show, including the death of Rita and a lot of stuff within Miami Metro itself and other relationships that Deborah had. It also ended in tragedy, so there's been a lot that's gone on over the course of this show. And one of the biggest things coming out of it is that Dexter has learned actual emotion. He's learned actual feelings by this point, because in season 1, when we meet him, he's very much a blank canvas. He's very much just he's a dummy. He's a caricature. He's imitating everything that he's seeing. And by the time we're seeing Dexter in season 8, this is probably as real as Dexter can be at this point. He has these real relationships. He has children. He's been married. He's been in love multiple times. He's opened up to people about who he really is. Deborah knows who he really is. All these things have been happening, and we're now at the very end. And one of the biggest importance of this season is that Dexter finds out about the psychiatrist, Dr. Vogel, who basically developed the code to which Dexter has modeled and shaped his entire life around. And it's a lot about nature and nurture and all those kinds of things, because over the course of this season, again, it's hammered in that some of the things that took place in season 1, to where Dexter became this compassionate serial killer, almost this killer that has this code, this killer who won't bend it or break it, because of living with Harry and because of this code that was created by Dr. Vogel but was instilled into him by Harry. And his brother Brian didn't have that, so Brian grew up to become a stereotypical serial killer. And then Dr. Vogel, we have dealing with our big bad this season, her son, who is our big bad, this, the serial killer, basically, who, same thing, didn't have the same nurture that Dexter did. And because of that, nothing was instilled in her son that would allow him to not become this brutal and vicious serial killer as well. And there's a lot of parallels to season 1, because, again, Dr. Vogel's son is this kind of he's very similar to the way that Brian was in season 1, to where he's a what's the best way to put it? Like Oliver Saxon is a he's this successful, unassuming guy. There's nothing wrong with him, basically. He seems like this very normal, well-adjusted person, but beneath all of that, no, he's this terrible, terrible, vicious killer. And we find out, just kind of the same way that Brian did, wanting to have this relationship with Dexter, Oliver, who turns out to be Daniel Vogel, really just wanted to have this relationship with his mother. He wanted what she never gave him, but what he perceives that she gave to Dexter instead. And so a lot of this is about trying to regain that bond and showing that she'll take him over everything that's going on, and being disappointed by that. The same way that Brian and Dexter. Brian wanted to reunite with Dexter and form this serial killer bond, but, had to kill Deborah to do that, basically. It's the same thing here with Daniel and Evelyn and Dexter as well, to where they want he wants Dexter dead in order to reassume that bond, to reconnect that bond between him and Evelyn. And I know a lot of people hated the way this season went, hated the way that the show ultimately ended, and I can definitely understand that, because I don't know what people really wanted. I don't know if people wanted Dexter to really in this big shootout or getting caught by the police or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what would have satisfied everybody, unfortunately. And I think the problem is that when you look at a few of the previous seasons, and Rita dies, and LaGuardia dies, and all these other big things that happen. Deborah finding out that Dexter is a serial killer. All these things, like, they had some natural ways they could have written the show and finished it off there. And I just think there's no possible way this was going to end on a good note for everybody. Kind of like Lost. Lost got so good to where eventually got strung along so far that no one was going to be happy the way it ended. And so I feel I didn't hate the way Dexter ended. I liked what I got, honestly. Like, could it have been better? Sure. But it could have been a lot worse as well, too, honestly. I never really liked Deb. Unfortunately. So what ended up happening to her, I was like, whatever, man. Like, let's be done with her, man. So, like, I get a lot of people didn't like the way that played out, but whatever. I didn't hate it. I like Quinn. And ultimately, I like Quinn and what ended up happening with Quinn and Batista both, honestly, because they're both kind of better characters that deserved a bit of redemption for them both over the course of the mistakes they've made throughout the course of the show. So I liked where we left off with Quinn and Batista as well. I didn't mind Hannah coming back, honestly. Dexter's got to have a love interest. He really does, because it helps kind of keep him locked in as a human, honestly. And I feel without that, we're not getting to see that human side of that character. And so Hannah coming back and then those two reconciling and wanting to have a life, I like that. I honestly really like that because it's the evolution of Dexter realizing he wants a life, he wants a family, he wants love, he wants things that normal people do, and I think that's very well deserved after us watching for that many years to see where Dexter has evolved to, honestly. So I didn't mind that he just wanted to up and go and get out that way. It ultimately, him having to disappear into the Miami Ocean, and just showing up in, Washington, basically, as a lumberjack. It's whatever. It there wasn't an ending that was going to satisfy everybody, but I enjoyed it. And that takes us to Dexter New Blood. So we are now not 10 years off, because, again, if you recall, Dexter ended in September of 2013, and it's now only November 2021. So we're just 8 years away. But the whole idea here is that we are 10 years set on from the end of the original Dexter. In this story here, Dexter is living in the fictional town of Iron Lake, New York, under an assumed name of Jim Lindsay, and he's working as a local shopkeeper. Shop kind of sells kind of everything, a lot of hunting merchandise and things like that. And what we're basically seeing is Dexter's life that he's built for himself. And right off the jump, and I'm avoiding spoilers here. There's certain things that I don't want to hit, but there's one thing I do want to mention. We do not get the traditional Dexter opening, which I'm sure y'all remember. It's the fun, upbeat theme. It's Dexter, making the coffee, showering, brushing his teeth, tying his shoes, flossing, all that stuff there. We don't get that. And that's very much on purpose, because I think one of the main themes of at least this first episode is showing us the perspective of everybody else, how they see Dexter. And if you remember, earlier in the show, I mentioned that one of the things that's fantastic about the first season of Dexter is that we're seeing the serial killer's perspective. And that's the perspective of the entire show. We don't ever see the illusion that everybody else has of Dexter, because we're always thinking, man, he's going to get caught, he's going to get caught, he's going to get caught, because we're on his side. And Dexter New Blood immediately kind of throws us into uncomfortable territory, because right away we know he's Dexter, but we're not seeing things really from his perspective, honestly. Like, I feel like we saw a lot of this first episode from the perspective of the people of Iron Lake. And I thought that was really cool to see that because, there's no reason to suspect him. Like, they show all these shots of, oh, there's a knife here. Oh, there could be killing somebody here. And it doesn't happen. And it's like, that's again, it's so fun because, again, there's no reason for us to suspect that. We're seeing that from the perspective of these people. Why would Dexter grab a knife? Why would Jim Lindsay grab a knife and do something bad with it, And that's so fantastic because then when we get these glimpses of the perspective of Dexter, because he's having the conversation with his dark passenger. He's had that over the course of the original series. But when he has his few, it's not a lot. And I like the fact they only pepper it. But he has the conversation with his dark passenger. That's again coming from Dexter's perspective. And it's only glimpses. And it's kind of like, it's just like a sprinkle of the old Dexter, like old mannerisms, old things he used to say, things like that, and we kind of see as like a little bit of tension builds over the course of the episode there. Again, more of the old Dexter slowly breaking out. And we know, based on what we've understood about the character Dexter in the original series, something's got to happen. So I don't want to say too much because, we're going to watch it. And as well, I want y'all to enjoy this too. So check it out. Dexter New Blood. It's on Showtime. Fantastic. And we're going to finish things up here with a quick recap of our latest episode of Chucky. Now, this episode was, again, so freaking awesome. And again, this cast, this crew, just makes this show so much fun. We knew legacy characters were starting to show up because, again, we knew that we were going to get Nika, we were going to get Tiffany, we were going to get Andy, we were going to get Kyle, and who knows who else was going to show up. But we knew from promotional materials they were coming and that it was going to pretty much start around now. And we got to help keep molding the story of Charles Lee Ray in the flashbacks there, seeing a young Charles meet up with what we presume is a young Tiffany, and what ends up happening with the two of them decide to take on a combined murder, basically. And let me tell you how I was shocked at finding out who was playing young Charles Lee Ray in this one, because it's about the time of the original Child's Play movies. That's the kind of look that Charles has. And I was like, man, this actor looks pretty good in the shots they're doing. They're trying to do the whole George McFly thing to where it's not Crispin Glover, so we don't want to show you directly on. I was like, man, actor looks pretty good. Find out it's Fiona Dourif playing young Charles Lee Ray. Mind fucking blown at that point there. Killing it, man. And she's doing so good with her job, man, because that girl already is playing Nika Pierce. She's also playing current Chucky at that point in the body of Nika, and she's now playing young Charles Lee Ray. This girl is so damn talented. I hope we get to see more of her as Charles Lee Ray, because, man, absolutely killing it. And again, she's her father's daughter, so there's those similarities as well, too. And we also got to see Tiffany come back, and Tiffany she steals it. She absolutely steals it, man. Like, you just know that she is so vicious and ready to get back out there and start some killing again, just by the way she plays with Tiffany and Chucky's hostage at the hotel. It's so great to see her back on, doing a great job. That smile still so killer, and both those ladies just absolutely doing the work in that scene. Fiona Dourif going back and forth between Nika and Chucky as well is so awesome. I'm excited to see a lot more of that coming up. But on the kids' side, the kids trying to make a stand, and Lexi making a smart play this week there. She gets her hand on the Chucky doll and immediately starts beating the shit out of it there, because she's like, nope, not taking any chances. Love it. Practicality, because in 30 years of Chucky, yes, Chucky is 33 years old as of this week, folks. In the 33 years of Chucky, not a lot of people take a direct approach right away once they know. And it's like, fuck people thinking you're weird. Deal with that later. Beat the shit out of that doll and see what happens. And I'd be remiss, I can't spoil it, but man. Woo! Jake and Devin. Yeah! Oh, man. Jake and Devin. That's the win right there, guys. Yeah. Not going to say anything else there. Chucky was fantastic. Check it out on USA and Sci-Fi. Well, folks, that is going to do it for me tonight. We've talked a lot of good talk about Dexter. Get to the watch party. Come in and watch some more fun horror TV for us. Remember, we have 2 watch parties next week. We got the TV watch party on Tuesday, and then we're going to watch some movies on Wednesday. We got Spell and Bones coming for you, along with a fun review of that. And then we start getting into some Thanksgiving horror. And then I'm going to hit some requests that y'all gave me. We're going to talk The Empty Man here in a few weeks as well, too. But that's my time, folks. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'm T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.